Hello there. We are underway in celebrating our first year anniversary. And if you don't already know about it, I'm hosting a raffle and giving away more than $2,000 worth in cash and prizes. So if you or a friend have access to an Apple product, you can enter to win. For the complete details, go to sayyesToYourSoulPodcast.com. All right, here we go with another soulful episode.
So, if we're in this, it's almost like we're flip-flopping the model. Like the world wants us to take from Instagram, take from Facebook, take from magazine, take from media. And that becomes our to-do list, but that's like 100 and millions people's to-do list. And that's one of the reasons I think it becomes so overwhelming is it's not ours. It's not the one that came from our, highest power.
Hi there. My name is Tessa Lynne Alburn. Welcome to Say Yes to Your Soul. This is where we're going to talk about how you can get past your spiritual plateaus, raise your feminine energy, and express your true self with sparkle. Hello there. I'm really happy to say that we have a special guest today. Her name is Moran. She's a mom of 3, and she's a coach, and she struck her perfect balance between motherhood, wellness, and work. And she supports high-achieving female entrepreneurs who are overwhelmed with the life and the wellness pieces so that they can find their version of balance. She also has a podcast of her own called Plan Simple Podcast. So I want to welcome her. Mia, say hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So you have, transformed your own life. You somehow got out of the problems that you had. You're a mother, you're a successful coach. I want to know, my audience wants to know how you overcame one of your biggest challenges to get where you are.
Yeah, so I feel like one of my biggest challenges was more like a big moment, a big turning point in my life, which was about 14 years ago. And my kids are now teenagers, so I still had all 3, but they were all under 5 at that point. I'm actually trained as a graphic designer. That's what I'm an artist by trade. And so that's what I was doing. I owned a graphic design company at the time. And I sort of had all the things, I checked off all the boxes, let's say that, on the outside. And I also, was a creative in a very non-creative world. Like growing up, I had gone to all the schools that weren't creative until I got to art school, which happened in my second time I went to college. And I was an introvert in a very extroverted household. And so I had checked off all these boxes that were from outside of me. And I thought that I was supposed to be happy. And so it was this moment where I just felt I the exact moment was literally this afternoon, and it was 2:30 or 3, and it wasn't quite time to go home yet. And I just remember the visual was this stack of coffee cups that had built up over the course of the day. And I just remember thinking how am I so tired? How am I feeling so unfulfilled? What is wrong with me? Why can't I make, why is it that I have these things and I feel so awful? And I just there was this disconnect. It was I was not allowing myself to feel awful, and I was feeling awful. And it was sort of the moment where those two things came together. And so that just started this journey, which actually it's funny that you mentioned the meal planning book, because it started off with me shifting my food. And when I shifted my food, so at the time I did not know how to cook. I had these 3 little kids. I used to wait for my husband who did cook, but with the kids, I couldn't. And so it was a lot of takeout and frozen food and hodgepodging stuff together. I was not at my healthiest at all. And on this particular day, I just heard this voice that was kind and very firm that it was time to get healthy. And so it didn't feel like the mean voice. It felt like the kind voice. And I now would call that my intuition. And I just started taking one step. I was like, I kept trying to get back to that voice. And like, the first thing I did was like, okay, I need to get healthy. So I just literally looked up from my desk and was like, who knows what would you do if you wanted to get healthy? And someone was like, a new yoga studio open. So I was like, okay, I'll go to yoga. I called the babysitter, which was not what I normally did. I was either at work or at home. And I was like, I won't be home for 2 hours. And then I went to yoga class, and as an introvert, if anyone listening is an introvert, you might get this, but I am not somebody who would go introduce myself to the teacher, but I felt very called intuitively to go introduce myself to the teacher. So I did. And she was like, what do you do? And I said, I'm a designer. She said, I need a website. I said, I feel awful right now. She said, I have a plan for you. Come to my house tomorrow. So I was like, okay. So then I went to her house, and it was just like one day at a time. I would just close my eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. And be like, what's next?
You close your eyes and you heard that kind voice, but firm. And I love that distinction, right? It's not just like some little fairy voice. It's like it really knows. It's clear.
Yeah. Well, and there's a voice like even today that's like, oh, come on, Mia, like stop working so hard. Just go watch Netflix. And I'm like, that's the other version. That's the shadow version of the one that's telling me to work too hard. Right. Like that's not it. Neither of those are it. There's this other voice that's kind and firm and much wiser.
I think that's great, because one of the things that I think a lot of people have a misconception about is they think they're going to close their eyes in a meditation and suddenly they're going to hear this booming God voice or something, right? Like, this is what you need to do. This is your destiny. And it's not like that at all, right? It's for me, it's like the soft voice and a feathery voice, but it's clear. And I love that distinction that it is kind and it's firm. It's very succinct.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it can be like, it's so succinct, and sometimes it can be so fast you don't hear the voice. To me, sometimes it's just as much about the pause. So just even being here with you today as an example, I have a business coach, and she was like, I challenge you to speak 4 times next week. And I hung up and I was like, how am I going to speak 4 times next week? I literally think I said that outside. And then I literally was like, I'm going to go procrastinate right now. And I opened my inbox, and there was this email from one of my friends who was like, will you come speak at my thing? And I was like, oh, sure. And here I am on 6 speaking things today, So it's like sometimes it's in your inbox. Sometimes it's like the letter that comes in the mail, right? But it's like, you have to have had that pause to know that the thing you're seeing is the thing, and it's not like part of the 100 things that are really the shiny object.
And it's different than, say, where's the sign? What am I looking for? Right? It's not like that grasping thing. It's like, so what I'm hearing from you is it's almost like really being clear, like you accepted that challenge to go do 4 speaking things this week, and you got clear that you were doing it, and you paused. And you open your email box and you're like, oh, look at that. It's a fit.
Right?
Yeah.
It's totally a fit. And it was easy. It took me 10 minutes. Right. So, and the second I get into like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard, I'm disconnecting from that pause. Right. Because the pause needs like the quiet. The second my brain is in there being like, you're not enough, this is never going to work, blah, 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 blah. Like I might not even have seen the email.
Exactly.
Like I
would have been, oh, I'm not going to look at it or throw it in the trash.
It was actually in my promotion. So it wasn't even in my box. I was just sort of like playing around, and I was clicking things, and there it was, So it's like, but it needed that pause.
Yes. Very, very important, the pause. So for you, after the pause, is there something that supports you, say, around your choices or how you make your choices that you'd like to share?
So from that 7 cups of coffee day, I had this whole sort of journey that led me to get healthy and write a book and do all these things. And from that, I started just comparing when things worked out and when they really didn't. So I started noticing that when I take this pause, when I listen to intuition, that's really helpful and something that I was not giving myself the space to do. And from that usually comes also a component of being a little bit more dreamy than I might let myself be in normal circumstances. So So it's like I'm centered, but then I'm focused on a vision. So it's less about me right here, right now, making choices from the me 10 minutes ago. It's about me right here making choices for the me that's like a week, 2 weeks, a year from now, right? Like, so it's like I can connect to a bigger version, like a greater version of myself. And I think that that piece is connected and really important. And from there, then I make better choices. And so it's like from there, then I think it becomes a creative process that many of us, it might look like a to-do list or like a brain dump or whatever you want to call it, where we're like, okay, we're centered. What do we need to do this year, this week, this day? And we sort of write out what the possibilities are. And then we have to, again, have that gut check, that pause to choose. And to me, that's everything we've talked about so far is like a very feminine process. Like we're really tapped into our inner knowing. It's very feminine. I think planning in general, which is, some people say I'm like the planning coach or whatever, is a very masculine practice. But when we bring the two things into balance, then the masculine can actually contain the feminine and it can hold us. And it can be this like beautiful way that we can fulfill our promises to ourselves because we have a little bit of structure around having tapped into our intuition.
This is a great conversation. Absolutely. So I think one of the things you've hit on here that a lot of women misunderstand is how to have structure without becoming the masculine.
Yes.
Right. And so then, and the brain, the intellect loves to have structure. So we can over structuralize, we can implement all these goal planning things, for example, or, an endless to-do list, because that's a structure, but that's an endless one. And so we need to have more, it's a structure and kind of a container for the energetic of the feminine to be able to be in it and to pause. So sometimes one of the ways I think about it also is like discipline, right? We need the discipline of the structure and we need to show up for it. But we don't, but we need to access our greater wisdom, which is the feminine.
Yes.
Right. To make the choices.
Yeah.
For us. Well, I love this process that you have. So here's what I just want to reflect back because I think this is really important. One of the things that Mia was just saying is when she's listening to her intuition, she's listening to make choices for herself. And so she lets herself become a little more dreamy, right? So whatever that means to you. And then she intentionally brings in the future version of herself, right? Would you say that you're like thinking who I want to be?
Absolutely. I'm really thinking about becoming versus what I need to do, right? It's like, who am I really becoming? Who do I want to become?
Who am I becoming? Yes, that makes so much sense. So it's not about doing, it's about being and becoming. And when you connect to that, who you want to become, it's like the magnet in the future that the rest of you pushes forward to or moves forward to. We're not really pushing, but you're connecting to that greater version of yourself because that is your future magnet. You're anchoring to it. And so therefore you must make better choices to get there. And so it all works together beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Now, do you ever get in any problems? Like you find yourself not able to do that, or it's challenging to do it? Like if you're tired or you've kind of just gotten off course.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like that's the thing. I mean, we're going to get off course, but we always have the ability to tap back in. We always have the ability to pause. We always have the ability to come back to ourselves. So it's just the remembering to do that instead of to panic, freak out, get stuck. Like I find a lot of women just get stuck. Yes. And then it's like this feeling of like, oh my gosh, how did a week pass? How did a month pass, and it's just because we're stuck in a loop somewhere. We haven't interrupted ourselves with that pause to just, take the step out. And so, I mean, absolutely, I still get stuck, but I just feel like quicker. I remember to like pause and ask myself the universe questions.
Wonderful. So this has really become a very integrated part of your life. And I
Yes.
know that as a coach, you've also developed something. I think what were you calling it? The planning OM or something
Yeah,
like
so
that
we
that you
have a
have?
method called the flow planning method, which was
Flow
just
planning
flow
method.
planning method. And
Okay.
flow stands for food and wellness is the F, L is lifestyle, O is OM, and W is work. And I just find that we live these siloed lives where all these things exist separate, but our lives are too full for them to live separate because there's so many dependencies. And so I love really thinking about all of them, and especially that OM piece, really understanding how we can be supported by spirit and soul to follow through on the things that we want the most,
Mm.
or are called into doing the most. And one of the things that I also believe about women is that we really operate best in a village, and our world is not set up that way. And so, if we're in this, like, it's almost like we're flip-flopping the model. Like, the world wants us to, like, take from Instagram, take from Facebook, take from magazine, take from media, and like that becomes our to-do list. But that's like 100 million people's to-do list. And that's one of the reasons I think it becomes so overwhelming, is it's not ours. It's not the one that came from our, highest power. And
Mhm.
so, and then we go off and we do it all alone because we're exhausted from all the people and all the opinions over here, especially for an introvert, right? And
Yes.
so if we flip it and we let ourselves be like choose from a restored place, meaning, and I think this, it's funny. I'm assuming this is true for everybody. I really definitely know it's true as an introvert that if we take the time to just be in that being energy, and we're alone when we're making choices, because that's how we can source from our soul. We make the choices, that becomes what's on our to-do list. But then when we've decided, then we go find our village, because we don't need to do this all alone. We need support. We need help. We are deserve it, right? Like we don't need to do it alone. And so I think it's like we flip-flopped it somehow, and it becomes really lonely when we flip-flop it.
Yes. Yes. It can be very lonely. And also then that's where the negative voices start to come
Yeah.
in. Because then those old patterns of like feeling
Yes.
like we don't belong and all that stuff get triggered. So it is part, it's what I'm hearing you say is it needs to be intentional also
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get the supportive village,
Yeah.
whatever
Absolutely.
that
And
looks
it's
like. And
I
the
think it's
village could
easier
be,
to
oh, so go ahead.
Well, I just think it's easier to do that once you've started off intentionally, because then sort of those people sort of start to magnetize you, just like that yoga teacher, right? Like, I couldn't have made that
Yes.
up in my head that I would go introduce myself to this yoga teacher. Like, I wouldn't have done it in my head, but like I was very called forward to just go do that. And so it didn't feel hard.
And I would say you were probably very open also. You were called to it and you knew you were in that I'm going to do this kind of mode. And the synchronicities started showing up and you kept saying yes.
Yeah. And I was ready to receive. Yes, for sure.
Yes, you were. Well, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
I would do you have one last tip or piece of guidance?
So I love thinking of planning as a gift from your past self for your future self, so that you can actually be in the now. So I'll just leave you with that. You can ponder it.
Oh,
So I
I
think what we
like
really want is to
that.
be in the now.
Yeah, I like it. Definitely going to highlight that in the show notes. All right, thank you. That'll give my ladies some things to think about. And Mia, where can people reach you?
Yeah. So at our website, plansimple.com is probably the best way, because I love sort of being in email contact. I always ask for feedback and stuff. So I think that's where I am the most. So if you go to plansimple.com, you'll see that there's a way to get into our course From Overwhelmed to Ease, which is free. So you could join us in that. We also always have workshops. So that's all up there. And I'm on Instagram, plansimple.co.
Fantastic. I know that some of my people are going to want to find you and hang out a little bit because you are brilliant. And I love
Oh,
all your
thank you.
insights and I love just kind of your fresh take on how you're working with the pause,
Yeah, thank you.
interrupting the things that aren't supporting you so you can hear the call of your soul, to hear your higher power and say yes to your heart and yes to your soul. Thank you so
Thanks.
much for being here today, Mia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mhm. All right. Thank you for
Thanks.
listening. And I wish you all an amazing day filled with rainbow light throughout your heart and plenty of kindness. Bye bye for now. All right. Thank you for joining us for this week's delicious episode. Before you jump off, I wanted to remind you to get entered in the raffle this month because I'm giving away more than $2,000 worth of prizes in both private sessions and actual cash. What are those prizes, you ask? Well, one of them is a private 75-minute soul light healing session with me. And that can be healing on various levels. It might be releasing trauma or tuning up your body or your emotions or clearing things like past lives and karma that's been, energetic debris holding you back. This session can be very helpful and sometimes have dramatic results in relationships, money, and in your health. And we're going to do that together on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you live. The second prize is a 60-minute coaching session with me, and that's also going to be on Zoom. So if you want support or clarity for your goals, like help with getting started with a project or just creating an action plan, that is going to be an amazing session. You'll be surprised at how much you come away with. The third prize is a personalized meditation that I will design especially for you. And of course, it's going to be yours to keep. So it's going to be fully personalized in terms of the content, and I will be speaking just to you so that you will be able to resonate with it and receive the maximum benefits that you want to create. Okay, now for the fun stuff, the cash. I have several cash prizes in various amounts. I've got several $50 prizes, $75 prizes, and $100 prizes. So you can see there are many opportunities to win here, and I just want to encourage you to be sure to play because you do need to play to win. All monetary prizes will be delivered through PayPal or Wise. And if you have a different currency, it'll be automatically converted for you. So as long as you have access to an Apple device, you can play. And all the instructions are available on our website at sayyes2yoursoulpodcast.com. That's sayyes2yoursoulpodcast.com. And if you need any support in completing your raffle entry, my team is ready to help you with that. You'll find their email on our webpage as well. So that's it. All the best to you, and may you say yes to your soul.